The airport announcement echoed just as the coffee cup slipped from the check-in agent's hand. Flight Sky Nova, 227 to Chicago, is now boarding first-class passengers. Amid the chaos of Los Angeles International Airport, two men walked toward the same gate, the same first-class cabin, but prejudice had already chosen who would go first. Michael Turner adjusted his tie and walked calmly across the terminal. He was 42 years old, the CEO of Sky Nova Airlines, the very company he had built in his early 30s. His appearance was composed and precise. Grey suit, polished leather shoes, a watch that was elegant but not flashy. In his hand was a first-class ticket seat, 1A printed perfectly with his name. Ahead of him, Richard Cole, 50 years old, a confident businessman with salt and pepper hair and a self-satisfied smile, held a glass of champagne from the VIP lounge. He moved through the gate like a man who belonged there. No one questioned him. No one stopped him. A nod and a welcome back, Mr. Cole, were all it took. But when Michael placed his ticket on the scanner, the familiar beep sounded, followed not by the green light of approval, but by a cold red glow. "I'm sorry, sir," the attendant said. "The system is asking for ticket verification." In the noisy terminal, that sentence was clearer than any announcement. Michael's brow furrowed slightly. Verification. "This is a first-class ticket purchased with a corporate account. Is there a problem?" The agent, Emily Rogers, around 30, her brown hair neatly tied in a bun, gave a polite smile. "It's just procedure, sir. Please wait a moment." Her tone was courteous, but her eyes betrayed doubt. Emily had worked here for 8 years. She prided herself on what she called her professional intuition, the ability to tell who truly belonged in first class just by how they walked or dressed. And this man, though well-dressed, seemed out of place to her. Too calm, too lacking in that subtle air of entitlement. What she didn't know was that his calm came not from ignorance of power, but from a lifetime of being doubted. Behind him, the passengers began to murmur. A young man frowned and checked his watch. A mother sighed quietly. No one spoke, but their looks said it all. Why are we delayed because of him? Emily felt the pressure rise. She looked around for help. Immediately, Mark Dalton, the area supervisor, approached a large man with a gravelly voice and the authority that came from 15 years in the business. "What's going on, Rogers? The ticket seems valid, sir, but the system flagged it for additional verification." Mark glanced at Michael, his eyes sweeping from head to toe, then nodded slowly. "Let me see that ticket." He turned it over in his hand, inspecting it, as if searching for counterfeit marks. "When did you buy this?" 3 days ago. "Payment method, corporate account." "Which company?" "Sky Nova Airlines." Mark let out a short, mocking laugh. "An airline company. And which department would that be?" Michael didn't react. "Executive board," he replied simply. The answer only deepened Mark's suspicion. "Sure, everyone says they're an executive." The loudspeaker blared again. Final call for first-class passengers. Ahead, Richard Cole disappeared behind the curtain. No waiting, no questions, no proof required. Michael stood there, ticket in hand, watching his gaze, not angry but distant and steady. It wasn't the first time he'd witnessed such a scene, only this time it was happening to him inside the system he had built. Sir Emily said softly, "Could you please wait just a little longer? We need to call for verification from central control. I fly this route almost every month. Could we handle this more quickly?" "Procedure is procedure." Sir Mark interrupted, his tone sharp as steel. "Security doesn't follow your schedule." At that moment, someone began recording. Lisa Bennett, 28, a freelance journalist whose flight had been delayed, started a live stream. She zoomed in on Michael's face, then panned to Emily and Mark. She didn't know who the man was, but her instincts told her this was bigger than a ticket check. Through her lens, the scene was clear. A white passenger waved through without hesitation, a black man, polite professional, forced to prove who he was. "This is LAX, Gate 12, Lisa said into the camera. "Take a look at what's happening." 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Mark and Emily continued their so-called verification. Michael remained still composed. He glanced at his watch, not out of impatience, but in realization that he was being tested by the very unconscious bias he had warned his own board about. Finally, Mark offered an option. "You can either move to economy or wait for the next flight." The air froze. All eyes turned toward Michael. He took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing a mix of restraint and calculation. Then he nodded. "I'll take economy." As he stepped out of line, Lisa kept filming. Behind the camera, her voice trembled slightly. "He's staying calm, but I have a feeling this isn't over." When Michael entered the economy cabin, the airport returned to its ordinary rhythm. But only he knew that beneath that silence, a storm was forming. A single message had already been sent. 4 simple words appeared on the screen of his phone, Protocol Nova activated. 1 touch, 1 humiliation, 1 trigger. No one realized that in that crowded economy cabin, a CEO had just begun a revolution. On the control screen at counter number 12, a red message kept flashing, "Verify ID mismatch." To Emily Rogers, it was just a technical signal, but in her mind, it felt like confirmation of the uneasy feeling she had the moment she first saw that man. Emily trusted her instincts. 8 years working at Los Angeles International Airport had convinced her she had a professional eye. Just 1 glance, 1 stride, 1 tone of voice, and she believed she could tell who truly belonged in first class. They had something hard to describe, a kind of effortless confidence, an air of familiarity with privilege. But that man, Michael Turner, she remembered the name, didn't seem like one of them. He didn't look annoyed, didn't try to argue or justify himself. He just stood there, too calm, too still. And that calmness made Emily even more suspicious. Fraudsters often act confident, she told herself. I'm just following protocol. What she didn't know was that sometimes protocol is how people justify the cracks in fairness. Mark Dalton stood beside her, arms crossed. At 45, he was long used to making quick decisions. He was often praised for his ability to assess a situation within the first 10 seconds. But today, those 10 seconds would cost him his career. I've seen this type before, Mark said quietly, his eyes still fixed on Michael. Dressed sharp, speaks smoothly, but the ticket's fake. Sometimes they use old corporate cards info that doesn't match. Emily nodded, almost grateful for the validation of her gut feeling. They were reinforcing each other, building a version of truth out of shared bias. Behind them, the line grew longer. A young white man spoke up impatiently. Can we just go ahead? We don't have all day. Emily forced a smile. Yes, sir. Please bear with us just a few more minutes. But her thoughts were colliding inside her head. Why wasn't this man reacting angrily like the real first-class passengers usually did? Why was he standing there so composed, speaking politely, showing no trace of entitlement? In that moment, she didn't realize that such composure was the very sign of real power, the kind that needs no proof. At a distance, Lisa Bennett kept filming. Her camera trembled slightly, not from her hands, but from her heartbeat. She knew she was recording something millions had experienced, but few had evidence of the moment prejudice wears a uniform, and people call it reasonable suspicion. Michael looked around, his eyes sweeping over the crowd until they stopped on the young journalist holding her phone. He understood exactly what was happening. For a second, he wanted to stop it all, to tell them who he was, to turn the situation upside down, to make them realize the magnitude of their mistake. But he didn't. He took a deep breath and let his silence become the test, not for himself, but for the very system he led. "I just want to board my flight," he said, his voice low and calm. "We're just following procedure," Sir Emily replied, her eyes still on the screen. "Procedure isn't wrong," Michael said quietly, "but how we use it can be." His words made Emily pause for a split second, but Mark quickly stepped in. "Security isn't a place for philosophy, sir. Please cooperate." The way he said cooperate sounded more like a command than a request. Michael nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly. He took out his phone and opened his contacts. A short message was typed and sent. No one noticed, but that message was the first signal triggering a shockwave the entire aviation industry would remember for years to come. Meanwhile, Emily called the verification center. She had to wait, and as she did, the sound of announcements, rolling suitcases, and casual chatter blended together into a symphony of routine. But within that noise, she felt a discordant note, a quiet unease. Maybe I was wrong, she thought fleetingly, but immediately her defensive logic kicked in. No, if I let this go and it turns out to be fraud, I'll be blamed. I'm just doing my job. She didn't realize that sometimes the fear of being blamed is more dangerous than the fear of being wrong. Mark glanced at his watch. 5 minutes until the gate closes. If we can't verify it, we'll move him to economy. Emily nodded, feeling an odd sense of relief. Someone else had made the decision for her. She no longer had to bear the responsibility. Ahead, the first-class curtain closed. Richard Cole, who had just passed through without scanning his ticket twice, was pouring himself another glass of champagne. He had no idea and no interest in knowing that right behind him, another passenger with the same ticket class was being denied. Sir Mark said firmly, "Your ticket doesn't match the payment information. We can't allow you to board this cabin. You can fly economy or wait for the next flight." The air grew heavy, thick with judgment. People waited to see how Michael would react. Some looked curious, others satisfied, as if watching someone being put in their place. Michael stayed silent, then spoke slowly, "I understand." No arguments, no explanations, just a nod, and he turned away, walking off with the quiet certainty of a man who knew exactly where real power resided. As he disappeared into the crowd, Emily suddenly felt her heart race, not out of fear, but from a deep, unshakable sense that something was wrong. Mark patted her shoulder, his voice smug. "Good job. We followed protocol." She forced a thin smile. But at that exact moment, Mark's phone buzzed in his pocket, an internal notification. A Ryanair internal alert, VIP case, pending review. He didn't notice, but history had just started its countdown. In the corner of the lounge, Lisa Bennett looked at her phone. Her live stream had already reached 500 viewers' comments, flooding in. "This is racial discrimination. Where is this happening? What's his name? Share this video." She didn't know that, just hours later, that number would be 50,000. And the story she captured today, A calm man quietly walking toward economy would change the way the entire nation thought about procedure. On that same flight in the cramped economy cabin, Michael Turner sat silently looking out the window. The sky was calm and blue, but inside him, a storm was gathering. He smiled faintly to himself and thought, if they think this is just a downgraded passenger, they're about to learn the true meaning of 2 words. Check procedure. No one at the airport realized that a single tap on a phone screen had just unleashed a storm. A storm without thunder or rain, only the blue light of a screen and fingers scrolling endlessly across social media. Lisa Bennett, a 28-year-old freelance journalist who had failed 3 documentary projects in a row, was sitting in the waiting area less than 20 meters from Gate 12. When she started live streaming, she didn't think she was capturing anything remarkable. She just saw a black man being held back, something she had witnessed far too many times in her life. But there was something different this time. It wasn't the noise, it wasn't the argument. It was the silence. The man didn't shout, didn't resist, didn't look powerless. He just stood there calm and steady, as if allowing others to paint a portrait of themselves. Lisa's camera shook slightly. She tried to steady her hands, her heart pounding. "This is LAX. Gate 12, she whispered into her phone. This man has a first-class ticket, but is being asked for additional verification, while all other passengers are boarding as usual. A few comments popped up. He's probably faking it. No, I've seen this before. Keep recording, Lisa." Her name started getting tagged. Within minutes, that small incident at Gate 12 became a rising trend. The first hashtag appeared LAX Gate 12. Then, after a few tweets, it changed to LAX discrimination. Strangers began sharing it. Here we go again. Prejudice never takes a day off. Lisa kept her eyes on the scene. She zoomed in as Michael Turner agreed to move down to economy. She caught the way his hand tightened just slightly, like a man suppressing a wave rising in his chest. The light reflected across his face, serene, almost peaceful, but in his eyes, a cold storm was brewing. Across the terminal, Emily Rogers hadn't yet realized that her own phone was vibrating, non-stop, flooded with messages from friends and co-workers. "You're on the internet. Oh my God, that video's everywhere. Be careful, Emily." She didn't understand. All she felt was her heart tightening as she watched the man's silhouette fade into the crowd. A small voice whispered inside her, "Maybe I just made a mistake." But almost instantly, her mind fought back. No, it was procedure. I didn't mean any harm. I followed the rules. From that moment to the end of the day, the phrase "I followed the rules" would become the most repeated defense at LAX. In the economy cabin, Michael Turner sat in seat 23C. On his left, a college student wearing headphones studied online. On his right, a middle-aged businessman kept checking his Rolex, frowning at the lack of legroom. Michael smiled faintly. 3 years ago, he had personally approved the design for that row of seats. Back then, he had added 2 extra rows to maximize revenue. Now he was experiencing that decision from the other side, the passenger side. A bitter irony, and also a valuable opportunity. He opened his phone. The reply had arrived, Protocol Nova confirmed. No one around him understood what that meant. But in the world of Sky Nova Airlines, Protocol Nova was a powerful mechanism. It activated an emergency review procedure for airport partners whenever there were signs of discrimination or ethical violations in service. In other words, Michael Turner had just launched a nationwide investigation from seat 23C. As the plane began to taxi, the online storm officially took shape. Lisa was still live streaming. Her viewer count climbed from 500 to 5,000, then 15,000 within half an hour. Comments poured in, filled with outrage. He handled it more calmly than the whole system. Does anyone know who he is? They did that in broad daylight. A well-known Twitter user reposted the video with a caption, "It's 2025, and we're still here checking the tickets of black men in suits." Within 20 minutes, the video hit 50,000 views. Local newsrooms began making calls. CNN contacted its Los Angeles bureau. An editor spoke through the earpiece. "Find the man in that video. Ask who he is." In the sky above, as the plane reached cruising altitude, Michael Turner leaned back in his seat. He felt the faint vibration of the fuselage, the steady hum of the engines, the sound that had defined his life in aviation. But today, it sounded different. It echoed like the heartbeat of a system about to confront itself. On the ground inside the LAX operations office, Mark Dalton received an email from corporate communications. There's a video going viral. Gate 12, Flight 227. It might involve you. He opened it, the image of himself standing before the black man, pointing toward economy. His throat went dry. Damn it, who filmed this? Emily sat frozen, her face pale. We just followed the rules, didn't we? Mark said nothing. For the first time, the rules had never felt so fragile. Meanwhile, Lisa turned off her camera, her hands trembling with adrenaline. The final viewer count glowed on the screen, 78,000 live viewers. She leaned back in her chair, breathing hard. For the first time in years, she felt she had captured something truly meaningful. She opened Twitter and typed a simple sentence. "I don't know who he is, but he just taught the world a lesson in dignity." That tweet would be shared more than 200,000 times within 24 hours. High above the earth, Michael Turner remained calm. But deep inside, he knew exactly what was beginning. Not anger, but the cold clarity of someone who had seen entire systems collapse from a single wrong act. He looked out the window. The last light of the day pierced through the clouds, casting a brilliant streak across the ocean. He thought quietly, sometimes justice doesn't need noise. It just needs one person patient enough to stand still until the world is forced to see. Online, the hashtag #WhoIsHe had reached the top 3 nationwide. The entire country was searching for the identity of the man in the video. And as the plane touched down on the Chicago runway, Michael Turner still didn't know that he was about to become a symbol, a storm with one name, dignity. The economy cabin glowed softly under dim lights. The plane cruised steadily at 36,000 feet. Everything seemed calm except for the man in seat 23C, who was about to trigger a shockwave that would shake the entire aviation industry. Michael Turner didn't move, didn't speak. Only his eyes shifted slightly, observing every detail around him, as if recording it all. The cramped seat, the loose tray table, the small crack in the leather backrest, every tiny flaw he recognized. He had signed off on this design himself. But today, for the first time, he was sitting where an ordinary passenger would, feeling those flaws the way a real traveler would live with them. A young flight attendant named Hannah stopped beside him, her voice gentle. "Sir, would you like something to drink now that we've taken off? Just water. Thank you." His tone was calm, polite, the kind of composure that made Hannah pause for a moment. There was something different about this man, a quiet self-control she rarely saw in economy class. But she didn't dare ask. She simply smiled softly and walked on, unaware that she had just served the man who had signed the contracts for her entire airline team. Michael opened his phone and checked his messages. On the screen appeared a response from Sky Nova Headquarters High Security Division. Protocol Nova confirmed standby for internal verification and compliance audit. A short sentence, but for Michael, it carried the weight of hundreds of pages of regulations. He was the one who had written and approved that very protocol, not for revenge, but to ensure that every Sky Nova partner would be held accountable for how they treated people. And now he was the first to set it in motion. Meanwhile, on the ground, a storm was building. Lisa Bennett's live stream had surpassed 100,000 views. Twitter was overflowing with hashtags: LAX discrimination, who is he passenger, 23C. The media had begun to move. An editor from the Los Angeles Times called a field reporter, "Get to LAX. Right now, identify that passenger." This could be the biggest story of the week. In the airport operations office, Mark Dalton was trying to stay composed. His phone rang non-stop calls from his superiors, from the legal department, from public relations. He repeated the same sentence over and over like a shield: "I was just following procedure." The passenger showed irregularities in the system. But inside, a quiet fear was growing. Not the fear of being wrong, but the fear of being seen as wrong by the public. As for Emily Rogers, the professional intuition agent, she sat in the break room, her hands gripping a cup of cold coffee. Messages from friends flooded in. "You're on camera. That video's all over TikTok, Emily. You need to say something fast." She opened Twitter. Her own face, along with Mark's and the mysterious man's, was everywhere. She read the comments. "That racist employee should be fired. They treated him like a criminal. Someone find out who that woman is." Each sentence cut like a knife. Emily's chest tightened. She thought, "I was just following procedure, so why do I feel so guilty?" High above, Michael Turner remained silent. He opened his laptop, and a file appeared on the screen. The title read, "Field Observation Report, Passenger Experience Unauthorized Scenario." He began typing. Every small detail, every expression, every word spoken by the staff was documented precisely. Not out of anger, but to build evidence for the largest reform the airline industry had ever seen. Step 1, assess the level of bias in security procedures. Step 2, review cultural awareness training policies. Step 3, reevaluate the standards for priority passengers. Line by line, the words filled the screen, short, sharp, precise, like a verdict written in administrative language. Below, Lisa Bennett lowered her camera, but the story didn't stop. News outlets were replaying her video with bold headlines. "Passenger denied boarding at LAX. Possible racial profiling." The comments poured in like a flood. "Who is that man? Why didn't he say anything? That's the strongest form of resistance, silence." Lisa watched her follower count climb from thousands to tens of thousands. She knew this was the turning point of her career, but deep inside, she felt something else: guilt. She was gaining fame from another man's humiliation, and that realization unsettled her. She opened her messages and typed a short note. "If you're watching this, I hope you know that someone saw you." The announcement echoed through the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our descent into Chicago in approximately 30 minutes. Please fasten your seatbelts." Michael closed his laptop. The sunset spilled through the window, bathing his face in warm gold. He closed his eyes gently, feeling as if he had just crossed a threshold from which there was no return. In his mind, a deep voice spoke, the voice of his late father, once a young pilot. "Son, justice doesn't lie in who has power, but in who has the courage to say enough." Michael smiled faintly. It's enough now, Dad. At Skynova headquarters in Chicago, the internal systems began flashing red alerts. The legal department received an emergency order. Activate Protocol Nova Priority Level 1. The partnership division was instructed to review all existing contracts with LAX. Meanwhile, the communications team began drafting a crisis management plan, unaware that their own CEO was at the center of it all. By the time the plane touched down on the Chicago runway, the world outside had changed. Local news channels were broadcasting a breaking story. A black passenger was forced to leave first class at Los Angeles International Airport amid allegations of racial discrimination. Across social media, everyone was asking the same question: who is he? In seat 23. Michael Turner remained silent. He packed his laptop into his briefcase, his gaze distant through the window. A faint smile flickered at the corner of his lips. They wanted to verify my identity, he thought. By morning, the entire country will know exactly who I am. The Skynova Flight 227 touched down on the Chicago runway beneath a golden afternoon sky. The engines roared, trembled briefly, then went silent. But 1,700 miles away, the name Michael Turner was already flooding every evening news broadcast. 7:46 in the evening, Los Angeles. The newsroom at Channel 8 erupted into chaos. The clip just passed 200,000 views, a reporter shouted. Have we confirmed the man's identity? Yet, not yet. But someone said he works in the aviation industry. On the massive LED screen, Lisa Bennett's video replayed Michael standing still, Mark pointing, Emily nodding, and then Michael quietly stepping toward the economy cabin. No raised voices, no protests, no explanations. Yet that silence echoed louder than any shout. Veteran journalist Charles Monroe, 55 years old, watched the footage and said, "If this is real, we are witnessing a textbook case of discrimination," and that man just turned composure into a statement. 8:10 in the evening, Chicago O'Hare. Michael Turner stepped off the plane and blended into the flow of hurried passengers. No one recognized who he was. He looked like any ordinary businessman, except that to him, everything around him seemed to move in slow motion. His phone buzzed non-stop. A message appeared from his assistant, Rachel Moore. Mr. Turner, the clip just hit 300,000 views. CNN, NBC, and Fox News are all airing it. They're asking if Skynova has a comment. Michael stopped in the hallway leading to baggage claim. The bright overhead lights reflected off his face, adding an extra layer of resolve. Don't respond to anything he said. Let them speculate. I want to see how the world reacts to a truth without a name. Across the country, Lisa Bennett stared at her phone. Her follower count had climbed to 180,000. Messages from her editor poured in. Lisa, you're sitting on a news bomb. Keep your phone on. Don't go offline. Lisa replayed the video for the 10th time. She didn't know why, but her chest felt tight. She had captured a historic moment, but the cost of it was a man's public humiliation. He didn't deserve that she whispered, but he made people remember him because of how he stayed silent. Meanwhile, in the operations office at LAX, Mark Dalton and Emily Rogers were summoned to an emergency meeting. The head of airport operations, Tom Harris, stood before a large screen displaying the news. Do you two see this? The video is in the top 5 nationwide trends. We're under investigation by both the FAA and the Department of Transportation. Mark tried to sound composed. I just followed protocol. That passenger's ticket had irregularities. No, Tom interrupted, his tone cold as steel. I just checked the system. The ticket was completely valid. There were no irregularities. Emily's face turned pale. Her voice trembled. I didn't mean to. I just, Not meaning to doesn't erase consequences, Tom said firmly, his eyes weary but unyielding. You're both suspended pending investigation. Mark lowered his head. His lips pressed tight. Emily's tears splashed onto the keyboard. Then came the sound of a new message on her phone. CNN is calling you Gate 12 girl. Congratulations, you're famous now. The words cut like a blade. 8:45 in the evening, Chicago. Michael stood beside the baggage carousel. The sound of clattering wheels and the faint smell of rubber and machine oil filled the air. He watched his black suitcase glide toward him, familiar as an old friend. That same suitcase had traveled with him through hundreds of first-class flights, but today it came out of the cargo hold, a quiet symbol of reversed roles. He picked up his phone and called Rachel. Her voice trembled slightly on the other end. Sir, the video just passed 500,000 views. Media outlets are asking, could this be a VIP passenger? Michael answered calmly, let them wonder. And you prepare for tomorrow morning's meeting with the legal team. I want to review every clause in our partnership contract with LAX. What are you planning to do, sir? Nothing, not yet. He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. A faint smile curved his lips, not out of joy, but because everything was unfolding exactly as he expected. 9 o'clock in the evening, New York. The CNN newsroom glowed brightly. An editor pointed at the monitor. They're saying he's an airline executive. If that's true, this is the story of the decade, another replied. Prep the headline, First Class Denied Executive, or Just Another Passenger. The video continued spreading, reaching 1 million views overnight, hundreds of comments, thousands of shares. But amid the public outrage, one mystery remained. No one knew who the man in the video was. 9:20 in the evening, Chicago Marriott downtown. Michael entered the hotel lobby. The sliding glass doors opened, reflecting golden light across polished floors. The front desk clerk greeted him with a warm smile. Welcome back, Mr. Turner. The presidential suite as usual. He nodded slightly. Thank you. I'll need a quiet morning tomorrow. As the elevator doors closed, he exhaled, resting his head against the cool steel wall. Everything was following the script, except this time he was the actor in a story he once directed. In the suite on the 35th floor, Michael sat by the window looking out over the city. Chicago's lights stretched endlessly like an ocean of fire. His phone vibrated non-stop interview requests, media inquiries, urgent emails from the board of directors. He scrolled past them all. On Twitter, someone had just posted, "The man in the viral video is rumored to be the CEO of a major airline." A comment below read, "If that's true, an entire airport's reputation is about to be buried alive." Michael looked at the screen, a faint smirk touching his lips. He typed a short message to Rachel. Prepare a press conference. 24 hours. Outside, the storm kept swirling. Lisa couldn't sleep. Emily cried alone in the staff dorm. Mark turned on the TV, saw his own face on the screen, and turned it off immediately. And Michael Turner, sitting amidst the shimmering reflections of Chicago's skyline, his hand resting on a leather briefcase, whispered to himself, "Tomorrow they'll know who it was they forced into economy class." And in the stillness of the Chicago night, the media storm shifted course from public outrage to a truth waiting to be named. 7:12 in the morning, Los Angeles. The first sunlight of the day streamed through the massive glass panels of LAX. Inside the operations office on the second floor, the air was so thick It felt like it could be cut with a knife. Everyone was silent, the only sound coming from the relentless ringing of phones in nearby rooms. On the large central screen, the news ticker ran beneath the CNN logo. CEO of Sky Nova Airlines stopped from boarding first class at LAX. Suspected racial discrimination. Tom Harris, the head of airport operations, sat motionless. He felt as if the ground beneath him was shaking. An hour earlier, the first call had come from Patricia Ward, Sky Nova's director of partnerships. Her voice was cold and precise, like a formal accusation. "Good morning, Mr. Harris. I'm calling to confirm something. The passenger who was denied boarding at Gate 12 yesterday morning was Michael Turner, the CEO of Sky Nova Airlines." The coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. The dark liquid spread like a shadow creeping across the room. "I'm sorry, did you say the CEO? Yes, the man your staff told didn't belong in first class. We are currently reviewing the entire operating contract with LAX." The call ended, but Patricia's final words kept echoing in his head. Didn't belong in first class. Those 4 words sliced slowly through the reputation of an entire system. 7:30 a.m. Tom pressed the intercom button. "Get Mark Dalton and Emily Rogers in my office. Right now." Mark entered first, his shirt wrinkled dark circles under his eyes. Emily followed, pale-faced lips pressed tight. "Sit down," Tom said, his voice rough. "We have a serious problem." He turned his monitor around and played the CNN report. The anchor's voice echoed over the footage that Lisa Bennett had captured, clear, close-up, every expression, visible. The female reporter's voice filled the room. "The man who was removed from first class yesterday is confirmed to be Michael Turner, CEO of Sky Nova Airlines. Sky Nova has officially activated Protocol Nova, an internal investigation process for partners found in breach of service ethics." Emily covered her mouth, her eyes widening in shock. "No, this can't be, oh my God." Mark shook his head, his voice sharp. "If he was the CEO, why didn't he say so? I wouldn't have done that if I'd known who he was." Tom slammed his hand on the table. "Exactly. That's the point. If he were just an ordinary man, you would have done it right." No one answered. The question hung in the air like a stone, dragging the room into a heavy silence. 8:00 a.m. Sky Nova headquarters, Chicago. On the 27th floor, every meeting room glowed with light. The executive board had convened an emergency session. Michael Turner sat at the head of the table, posture upright, eyes deep and composed. One board member asked Michael, "Should we issue an official statement?" "The press is demanding to hear your response." His reply was soft but deliberate, every word distinct. "No, we don't react, we act. Starting now, Sky Nova will conduct a full review of all partner systems. Any airport that fails to meet our standard of human dignity, we will terminate the contract." The room fell silent. Another executive spoke hesitantly. "And personally, do you plan to issue a public apology?" Michael looked straight ahead, his gaze cool and unyielding. "Apologize for what I'm not the one who's hurt. I only reflected the system's true face back to itself." His words made the air heavy, but everyone understood a war had begun. 9:05 a.m. Los Angeles. Lisa Bennett's video had now reached 2.3 million views. The name Michael Turner topped Twitter nationwide. News outlets splashed headlines across their screens. "The man stopped at Gate 12 is the CEO of a $30 billion airline. LAX faces severe reputation crisis." In the meeting room, Tom Harris held his phone, his voice trembling. "Michael Turner isn't just the CEO. He personally signed the operations contract between LAX and Sky Nova 3 years ago, and now he can cancel it with a single email. Emily broke down in tears, burying her face in her hands. I didn't mean to. I was just following procedure. Tom looked at her, his tone lowering. Emily, procedure exists to protect us from technical errors. It must never be used to excuse disrespect toward human beings. 10 o'clock a.m. Chicago. Michael stepped out of Sky Nova headquarters, the sunlight casting a calm glow across his face. Reporters swarmed him, cameras, flashing microphones thrust forward. Mr. Turner, can you confirm that you are the man in the video? Do you plan to sue LAX? Do you have any message for the public? He stopped, looking directly into the cameras. A faint smile, not bitter, not theatrical, just the smile of a man who understood the power of silence. No statement today, he said slowly. Only action, and action will speak for me. Then he walked away, leaving the reporters shouting behind him. 11:20 a.m. LAX. Tom Harris received a second call from Patricia Ward. We have officially notified the executive board. Sky Nova will send an internal audit team to LAX tomorrow, and Mr. Turner may attend personally. Tom froze. He's coming back, yes. Patricia's voice was cold. As an investigator, not a victim. The line went dead. Tom sat still, his hands trembling. Mark glanced over, swallowing hard. So what happens to us? Tom looked out the glass wall toward the runways where planes were rolling across the tarmac. What happens, he said quietly, is what always happens when people with real power decide to teach others a lesson. And that lesson, Mark, begins with us. The Los Angeles morning blazed bright, but inside LAX, another kind of light was fading, the light of arrogance, the light of habits built on judgment and assumption. As Tom left the room, Emily remained seated, staring at the news headline on the screen. Michael Turner, the CEO who was told he didn't belong. She touched the screen, her voice trembling. I was wrong. I didn't just humiliate a man, I humiliated myself. Outside, a Sky Nova aircraft soared into the blue sky, carrying the man they had once thought unworthy of first class. Evening in Chicago. A light rain fell, the droplets sliding down the glass windows of the 35th floor of the Marriott Hotel, breaking into soft streaks of light. Inside the spacious room, the only sound was the rhythmic tapping of a keyboard, cold, precise, each keystroke like a sentence being written in judgment. Michael Turner sat upright, eyes fixed on his laptop screen. Before him was the interim report from Sky Nova's communications team. Total views, 4.2 million. The keyword, Michael Turner CEO, ranks #1 nationwide. Sky Nova has received more than 600 media inquiries within 12 hours. He read slowly, his expression steady. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had predicted. But what weighed on him wasn't the virality, it was what it meant. A knock sounded at the door. David Lynn, 46 years old senior legal advisor, stepped in. His raincoat was still wet, droplets dripping onto the floor. He set his briefcase down, his voice hoarse from back-to-back meetings since morning. I came as soon as I got the update. I've been in meetings with FAA lawyers, the communications board, even the Department of Transportation. Everyone's waiting for you to make a statement. Michael closed his laptop and looked up. Thank you, David. But I don't want to make a statement. I want to ask a question. David frowned. A question? Yes. The question no one in this industry dares to ask. How many people have been treated the way I was, but without a camera to prove it? They sat facing each other, surrounded by the glow of the city lights outside. David opened his case and pulled out a folder. I've drafted a crisis response plan. If you want a soft resolution, we file a formal request for internal investigation at LAX, issue a statement condemning discrimination, and close the story before it escalates further. Michael was silent for a moment, then asked, "And after that? After that? After that, everything goes back to the way it was. Someone else will be stopped, questioned, asked to verify their ticket. The only difference is that next time they'll smile and say, 'It's just procedure, not prejudice.'" His voice was calm and low, but every word carried the weight of stone. David leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Michael, I understand. But you need to be realistic. A crisis of this scale, if you go public, you'll put dozens of airports and government agencies under immense pressure. They'll push back, they'll accuse you of using this as a media stunt. Are you sure you want to take it that far?" Michael smiled faintly. "I've spent my life helping people move faster through the skies. Now it's time to make the entire system stop just once to learn how to look inward." He stood and walked toward the window. Outside, Chicago's streets shimmered under the reflection of golden rain. His voice lowered almost as if speaking to himself. "When I was young, my father once told me it doesn't matter how high you can fly. What matters is who you take with you. I've been thinking about that all day. How many people have been left on the ground simply because others decided they didn't belong in the sky?" David watched him and slowly nodded. "You want to turn this incident into a statement?" "No," Michael said quietly. "I want to turn it into a system." He returned to the desk, opened his laptop, and pulled up another document. The title appeared clearly on the screen: Dignity in Flight Initiative. His voice was firm. "We won't sue. We'll rebuild." "Rebuild?" David raised an eyebrow. "Yes. A new program. Retrain every airport employee, from front desk agents to security officers to senior management. Not through PowerPoint slides, but through real experience. Each of them will board a flight as a passenger, without title, without uniform, without privilege." David sat silent for a few seconds, then smiled and shook his head. "You're about to change the entire aviation industry, Michael." "No, David. I'm just teaching them the lesson that a first-class gate refused to teach." A quiet stillness filled the room. The rain outside became a steady rhythm beneath the weight of their conversation, a dialogue that felt like the blueprint for a new era. Michael sat down again and opened the notes he had written during the flight. Lines appeared on the screen: observe employee attitudes, record patience levels during passenger verification, measure respect not by words but by looks. He turned to David. "Tomorrow I'll hold a press conference. Not to retell the story of how I was humiliated, but to tell the story of how a man can turn humiliation into reform." David nodded, his eyes glinting with quiet conviction. "I'll arrange everything: press, legal, logistics. Thank you. And remember, no fancy slogans. Just one message. If this could happen to him, then no one is safe." When David left the room, Michael remained seated. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the streets still shimmered with reflections of light. He looked at his phone. Hundreds of unread notifications, emails, calls, messages from colleagues, partners, journalists. He ignored them all and opened just one message from Lisa Bennett. "Mr. Turner, I'm the one who filmed the video at LAX. I know you don't need anyone to speak for you, but the public deserves to hear from you directly. If you want, I'll send you the full original footage. No edits, no cuts." He read it twice, then typed his reply. "Thank you, Lisa. Tomorrow the world will see it." Not to judge, but to relearn the meaning of dignity. The night covered Chicago, but in room 3507, the light stayed on. On the screen, the Sky Nova logo glowed beside the words, "Press Conference, 2:00 p.m. Tomorrow." Michael Turner sat in silence, his eyes no longer reflecting the anger of a man humiliated, but the steady resolve of a leader about to redefine fairness in the skies of America. He closed his eyes and whispered a quiet prayer. Justice is not punishment. Justice is when the humiliated rise and make the world change because of them. 7:00 in the morning, Chicago. The city was still wrapped in a thin layer of mist, but inside the ground floor lobby of the Fairmont Hotel, the lights of cameras were blazing. Reporters crowded shoulder to shoulder. Cables snaked across the floor like webs, keyboards clattered, and cameras flashed non-stop. A large banner stood at the front of the room. Press Conference, Sky Nova Airlines. Guest speaker, Michael Turner, Chief Executive Officer. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew this wasn't a press conference. It was a public trial. Upstairs in a private suite, Michael Turner stood silently before the mirror. A light grey suit, a black tie, not a single wrinkle. He had chosen the same outfit he'd worn the day he was stopped at LAX, deliberately. To tell the world, I don't need to change anything to deserve respect. Behind him, his assistant, Rachel Moore, spoke softly. "Everything's ready, sir. CNN, NBC, Reuters, The Washington Post. They're all here." Michael turned around, his eyes, calm and unreadable. "Where's David? Mr. Lin is in the main hall checking the press list. Over 60 journalists are attending." "Good. Let them ask anything. No edits, no cuts, no time limits." Rachel hesitated. "Are you sure the media can twist anything?" Michael's tone was steady. "They can't twist the truth when you speak with dignity." 7:30 a.m. Los Angeles, in the emergency operations room at LAX. Tom Harris hadn't slept all night. He watched the video over and over, and each time it twisted his stomach tighter. On the television, a local news anchor spoke over live footage from Chicago. In just a few minutes, CEO Michael Turner will address the incident that has shaken the aviation world. Sources confirm the FAA has launched an official investigation, calling it a major systemic failure. In the corner, Emily Rogers sat clutching a cup of cold coffee. She stared down. The foam had long dissolved, leaving only bitterness. "They're going to fire me, aren't they?" she whispered. Tom didn't answer. He just sighed, eyes fixed on the screen. "Sometimes punishment doesn't come from the law," he said quietly. "It comes from the eyes of society." 8:55 a.m. Chicago Grand Ballroom. The sound inside the conference hall rolled like waves, loud, overlapping, relentless. David Lin moved between rows, signaling to the communications team. Final mic check. No delays, no dropouts. A CBS editor whispered to her colleague, "What's he going to say? Demand compensation? Call for someone's firing?" The other replied, eyes locked on the door. "I don't know. But the way he stayed silent these past 2 days, that's scarier than any threat." At exactly 9:00, the back doors opened. Michael Turner walked in. No bodyguards, no entourage. Just him and the silence of hundreds of cameras waiting to flash. The entire room stood. Cameramen adjusted focus. Reporters inhaled. The air felt like the world was holding its breath. He stepped to the podium, placed his hand on the microphone, and said a single phrase. "Good morning." 2 simple words, but they froze the room completely. His eyes swept across the audience, the light reflecting on his composed face. His voice was low, steady, measured like the heartbeat of a man ready for battle. 2 days ago, I was denied boarding in first class at one of Sky Nova's partner airports. The reason given was that my ticket required verification. I stayed silent. I didn't get angry. I didn't defend myself. Because I knew a man's reaction lasts a moment, but a system's reaction defines an era. Flashbulbs erupted across the room. He continued, "I'm not here to retell an old story. I'm here to talk about what we've failed to see in our own industry, how we see people." Every word cut through the polished facade of professionalism that the service industry prided itself on. If a CEO can be doubted because of his skin color, imagine those without titles, without lawyers, without cameras. How many times have they endured humiliation with no one watching? A ripple of applause broke out, hesitant at first, then swelling into a roar. But Michael raised a hand, signaling for quiet. "Don't applaud me. Applaud the change we are about to begin." His voice grew firm as he announced the initiative. Today, Sky Nova Airlines officially launches the Dignity in Flight program, a nationwide reform initiative in which every partner, every employee from gate security to regional executives will undergo immersive training to experience travel as an ordinary passenger. No privileges, no name tags, no titles. Reporters raised their hands all at once. One called out, "Mr. Turner, is this your form of retaliation?" Michael smiled. "No, this is healing. I don't want revenge. I want this system to learn how to bow, not before me, but before human dignity." At that same moment in Los Angeles, Tom Harris sat in the control room, watching the live broadcast. Beside him, Emily sobbed softly as the familiar face appeared on screen. Michael stood there, not hateful, not vengeful, but filled with grace. Tom murmured, "That's real power. Not the power to fire someone, but the power to make them want to change themselves." The press conference ended with a line that etched itself into America's memory. If a ticket can make us forget respect, then maybe it's time to rewrite the definition of first class. Because first class isn't measured by the seat, it's measured by how we see each other. The room exploded with applause. Some reporters wiped their tears. In the front row, Lisa Bennett, camera trembling in her hands, knew she was capturing a moment that would change the entire industry. As Michael stepped away from the podium, flashes erupted like lightning in a storm. He didn't turn back. He simply whispered to David Lynn, "We don't need to win. We just need to wake them up." And in that moment, amid cheers and tears, everyone in the room felt it, the birth of a new era in aviation, born from the silence of a man once told he didn't belong. That afternoon in Los Angeles, the air inside the LAX administration building felt as heavy as molten steel. The emergency meeting room glowed red. On the large screen, a cold message from the Federal Aviation Administration appeared: urgent investigation required for violation of anti-discrimination policy. Mark Dalton sat with his head bowed, his hands trembling. His phone rang non-stop, but no one on the other end wanted to hear explanations anymore. Emily Rogers sat beside him, eyes swollen, clutching the suspension notice in her hands. There were no justifications left, no. I was just following procedure. Because this time, the whole country had seen exactly what that procedure looked like. Tom Harris stood up, his voice hoarse. "I've worked here for 20 years, but I've never seen an entire system tremble because of 2 words, bias and prejudice. We haven't just lost a contract, we've lost our honor." The door burst open. A communications officer stepped in, face pale. "Mr. Turner just announced that Sky Nova has suspended all partnerships with LAX until the investigation is complete." The room fell silent. No one spoke, but everyone knew this was the heaviest verdict justice had ever delivered through silence. 3 hours later, national news outlets were flooded with headlines. 2 LAX employees fired over discriminatory conduct. FAA launches special investigation. Michael Turner hailed as a symbol of modern justice. Meanwhile, Emily deactivated her social media accounts. On the television, she saw her own face staring back at her, the doubtful eyes, the strained smile. She whispered softly, almost like a prayer, "If only I had seen a human being instead of a prejudice." Mark was summoned to the director's office where he signed his termination papers. No one yelled at him. Only one sentence made him lower his head in shame. "You didn't just lose your job, you just taught the entire nation a lesson about power without restraint." That night in Chicago, Michael Turner sat in his office, the desk light reflecting across his face. On the table was a new email from the FAA. "Thank you for your cooperation. The investigation has officially begun." He read it and gave a faint smile. Not the smile of a victor, but of a man who had set justice in motion. Turning to David Lynn, he spoke slowly. "Tomorrow send out a new statement." David looked up. "About what?" "About forgiveness." David nodded, understanding immediately. Michael continued, his voice calm and deep. "I don't want to destroy LAX. I want them to learn how to see people before they see tickets." Outside, the night sky shimmered with streaks of light. Across that sky, a Sky Nova jet ascended, carrying the message he had just written: "Justice doesn't always punish. Sometimes it teaches." And for the first time in years, the whole world seemed to rise together with dignity. 3 months later, America entered a new kind of spring, a season of awareness and change. From a short video filmed at Gate 12 of Los Angeles International Airport, a national movement was born. People gave it a simple yet powerful name: the Turner Protocol. Under new FAA regulations, every employee in the aviation industry, from security guards and ticket agents to area supervisors, was required to participate in the Dignity in Flight program initiated by Sky Nova. They were no longer just learning how to handle procedures, but how to see people as human beings. Across airports nationwide, small signs began to appear, carrying the same message: every passenger deserves dignity. Michael Turner. Lisa Bennett, the journalist who captured that fateful video, received the Pulitzer Prize for her feature When the Sky Looked Away. In her acceptance speech, she said, "I once thought I was only recording an incident, but I realized I was capturing the moment when the world discovered that respect is the only fuel that allows humanity to truly soar." Emily Rogers left the aviation industry. She became a volunteer for a social awareness education project in schools. When she told her story, she neither avoided it nor justified it. "I used to believe in my professional intuition, but really it was just how I excused my prejudice. I wasn't fired for making a mistake. I was awakened by a human being." Mark Dalton faced investigation and quietly left the city. No one knew where he went, only that a year later, a handwritten letter arrived at the Sky Nova office. It read, "Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you for not destroying me, but for letting me see myself." Michael read the letter in silence, then placed it beside a framed photograph of his father, the man who once taught him that justice isn't about who wins but who wakes up. On the top floor of Sky Nova headquarters, in an office bathed in sunlight, a framed airline ticket hung on the wall, Seat 1, a Michael Turner. Beneath it was a brass plaque, engraved with the words, "Dignity isn't negotiable. Respect isn't optional. Justice, when done right, can move mountains. Michael Turner stood by the window, looking out at the sky, unfolding like a promise. He spoke softly, just loud enough for himself to hear. I don't want to fly higher than anyone. I just want everyone to be able to fly together. And somewhere among the clouds, a new kind of justice had truly taken flight. From the perspective of a specialist in leadership culture and professional ethics, the journey of Michael Turner is not just a story about a first-class ticket. It is a sober reminder for an entire society. One where complacency disguised as procedure has often made us forget the essence of being human. He did not choose revenge nor noise, but chose to use dignity as a mirror to reflect an entire system back upon itself, forcing it to face its own flaws. Because power may make others bow, but only integrity makes them rise in respect. When America watched him step onto that press conference stage, no one saw a humiliated man anymore. They saw someone who turned humiliation into reform. Someone who chose grace when he had every right to choose retribution. And that is the pinnacle of leadership, using one's position to lift people up, not push them down. In an era where a single video can transform an entire industry, perhaps what the world needs most is not more rules, but more heart. Because when compassion is placed in the right seat, justice will know how to fly. If you believe that respect should never be a privilege, but the foundation of civilization itself, then like this video to help spread that message, and subscribe to our channel to continue following stories where justice is written through humanity. Before you go, comment below with the phrase that reflects your belief in what's right. Keep your dignity.